All right! Welcome to Rockstar! Now, just so you all know, we're gonna cover this topic as fast and as completely as we can. Just the way you like it. Thanks for watching!
Chapter 1. Mark Twain. As a citizen of New York City in the late 1800s, all you hear your friends talk about is Mark Twain. They laughed so hard they cried, they said, when they went to his last lecture. One of your friends has seen him 3 times, twice in Connecticut and once here in New York. You'd become curious when you came across some of his writings in your weekly paper, including a strange wanted ad by Twain that read, $205 reward. At the great baseball match on Tuesday, while I was engaged in hurrahing, a small boy walked off with an English-made brown silk umbrella belonging to me and forgot to bring it back. I'll pay $5 for the return of that umbrella in good condition to my house on Farmington Avenue. I do not want the boy in active state, but will pay $200 for his remains. Your desire to see the man only doubled when you saw the flyers around town that stated, "The celebrated bearded woman is not in this circus," and another one that declared, "Come see Mark Twain, a splendid orchestra is in town," but has not been engaged. After seeing him in your newspapers and magazines for the last 10 years, you figure it's finally time to check this guy out and head to the lecture hall early. Good thing you did, too, because it is packed. A full house, even though the tickets were so pricey. At 8 p.m., an expectant, excited hush falls over the crowd as a man of medium height and build walks out to center stage in a black tuxedo and... Were those carpet slippers? The first thing you notice is his hair. My God, his hair! Has he ever combed it? It used to be reddish, you remember, but now his hair was white and standing up almost all on its own, every which way, above his bushy eyebrows and mustache. His gait is a little odd, too, and he sort of shuffles back and forth as he says, "Good evening," in a deep voice, which seems almost slurred because his southern accent is so thick. He takes his time, aware that the crowd is hanging on his every word, and lights his cigar. You may have read something of mine under the names Thomas Jefferson Snodgrass, Rambler, Josh, Sergeant Fathom, and W. Epaminondas Industrious Blab. He pauses and takes a drag off of his cigar. My real name, the name I was born into, you might know, is Samuel Langhorne Clemens. But you can call me Mark Twain. The crowd goes wild, clapping and hollering, and as you look around, you realize that everyone in the crowd looks different. There are a lot of New York City slickers, some rich folks, and some ordinary folks, but it looks like people have come from all over the country to hear him talk. You see some southern hillbillies in the back of the auditorium, some Texans over in the corner, and some classy Europeans out in front. He explains to the thrilled crowd that he came to choose the name Mark Twain from his time working on steamboats on the Mississippi River. It's an old river term, he says, his words twanging in the most unusual way. A lead man's call, signifying 2 fathoms, 12 feet. It has a richness about it. It was always a pleasant sound for a pilot to hear on a dark night. It meant safe water. It isn't long before he singles out some children in the audience. "Oh, good," he exclaims. "I have some advice for the youth of our great nation." Looking a little boy in the front row square in the eye, he says with his trademark deadpan humor, "Always obey your parents when they are present." He waits for the laughs to die down, then continues, "If a person offends you, and you're in doubt as to whether it was intentional or not, do not resort to extreme measures." He pauses. "Simply watch your chance and hit him with a brick." A woman in the seat next to you snorts while she's laughing, but you politely pretend not to notice. "I would now like to read to you a little bit from my latest novel, Huckleberry Finn," he says, sticking the cigar in his mouth to pull a book from his coat pocket. "This is from when Huck has run away on the raft, floating down the Mississippi, and he sees the sunrise over the river for the first time. And then he begins to read. 2 or 3 days and nights went by. I reckon I might say they swum by, and they slid along so quiet and smooth and lovely. Soon as night was almost gone, we stopped navigating and tied up. Next we slid into the river and had a swim, so as to freshen up and cool off. Then we sat down on the sandy bottom where the water was about knee-deep and watched the daylight come. Not a sound anywheres, perfectly still. Just like the whole world was asleep, only sometimes the bullfrogs a-clutterin' maybe. The first thing to see, looking away over the water, was a kind of dull line. That was the woods on the other side. You couldn't make nothing else out. Then a pale place in the sky. Then more paleness, spreadin' round. Then the river softened up away off, and weren't black anymore, but gray. You could see little dark spots driftin' along ever so far away. trading scows and such things, and long black streaks, rafts. Sometimes you could hear the sweeps squeaking, or jumbled up voices. It was so still, and sounds come so far, and by you could see a streak on the water, which you know by the look of the streak that there is a snag there in the swift current, which breaks on it and makes the streak look that way. And you see the mist curl up off the water, and the east reddens up, and the river, and you make out a log cabin on the edge of the woods, away on the bank on the other side of the river. And then the nice breeze springs up, and comes fanning you from over there, so cool and fresh and sweet to smell on account of the woods and the flowers. And next you got the full day, and everything smiling in the sun, and the songbirds just going it. The passage is so beautiful that the whole room is quiet, full of people lost in that Mississippi morning, imagining the log cabins, the raft, and the smell of the flowers. Twain lets the crowd savor it for a moment before saying, "To be honest, though, I would not recommend being up for the sunrise. Rise early. It's the early bird that catches the worm, they tell you. Don't be fooled by this absurd saw. I knew a man who tried it. He got up at sunrise and a horse bit him." Laughing heartily out loud, you're very glad that you came. So who is this mastermind humorist? Well, for one, he invented the word humorist, literally. He was the Jon Stewart, the Stephen Colbert, or the Bill Maher of the 19th century. He gave us our news with a venomous dose of humor, aiming his wit at anyone who deserved it. Against the assault of laughter, he once said, nothing can stand. And he proved that by traveling around the country telling jokes. He really was the first stand-up comedian. No one before him had been truly famous, unless they were a president, but he changed all that. He became the unofficial spokesperson for America. He was so loved, you could call him the nation's first rock star. When he died, President Taft issued a statement to comfort the public, and so did former President Teddy Roosevelt and future President Woodrow Wilson. Rudyard Kipling, who wrote The Jungle Book, traveled all the way from India just to interview him. His friends were Whistler, the painter, Nikola Tesla, inventor of electricity, Frederick Douglass, Ulysses S. Grant, Grover Cleveland, the list goes on and on. Kurt Vonnegut, a more present-day writer, named his first son after Mark Twain. William Faulkner called Twain the first truly American writer, and Hemingway said, "All modern American literature comes from one book by Mark Twain called Huckleberry Finn. It's the best book we've had. There was nothing before." He's been praised by George Orwell, Toni Morrison, and many, many others. He was a writer of books and short stories, a teller of tall tales, a satirist, a defender of equality, a lecturer, and a speechmaker. He was perfect at observing society, poking fun at the hypocritical, the pompous, and the cruel. He could make you laugh and get you so delightfully lost in his stories that he could slip morals and messages in without you even realizing it. He was the most wanted dinner guest in the entire country because he'd give after-dinner speeches on anything, fashion, cats, relationships, anything. He could write great American classics, talk about the Mona Lisa or some other dignified topic, and then turn around and give an entire speech about farting, which would include references to Queen Elizabeth I. And people would eat it up. He gave us the characters Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. He gave us the story of the Prince and the Pauper, the tale of a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, and the phrase, "all that glitters is not gold," among 100 other sayings that we use today. We have a crater on Mercury named after him, he's featured in greeting cards and advertisements, and we still use his most vicious and hilarious insults. His autobiography, recently released, has become a bestseller. We also give out an annual Mark Twain Prize for Humor to a deserving American comedian, including past winners like Steve Martin, Tina Fey, and Will Ferrell. And of course, we owe him for what we call the myth of the Mississippi, that idealized place from his stories where everything is peaceful and lovely for young children to play and have adventures.
Well, all right. We hope you enjoyed that. You just finished the first chapter of the topic. Now, just so you know, there are 4 more chapters to go in this app, and it will only take you about 45 more minutes to complete, and you are totally done. Now check this out. The app also comes with about 15 pages of analysis and summary that you can download and use any way you need to. Here's what you gotta do. You gotta click the link below and go directly to the Apple App Store and download the full app. It's fast and easy to do. Thanks for watching, everybody.